We usually talk about the coronavirus pandemic as a sudden crisis that does considerable harm, but which also comes and goes. But crises also draw attention to problems that are more persistent, including racial and economic divides. That's why three city councilors are calling for more attention to those problems in the groundwork for recovery. One of them is our guest, City Councilor at Large, Julia Mejia. Thank you very much for being with us, Councilor.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to having a good conversation with you today.
Councilor, one of the things in that letter that you put together with Councilors Wu and Arroyo is a phrase that says a lot of this crisis has been lost in translation. What's not getting through, at least not clearly enough?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of this work that we've been doing is around the language access. And I think what people are failing to see is that these issues were chronic and persistent way before COVID-19. And all of a sudden, there seems to be the sense of urgency and uncovering the issues that are impacting low-income communities. But to be honest with you, when I think about when they first started talking about flattening the curve and looking at social distancing, the language that they were using to communicate to people wasn't culturally responsive, right? And things were getting lost in translation, oftentimes for folks who that's not part of our vocabulary. And then I think, you know, that is a very telling sign about how much work we need to do to be able to really have a conversation that everyone can understand.
How much of this is choosing the right idiom for persuasion, and how much of this is about more intractable things, like people having to go to work someplace where they're more exposed to infections?
Yeah, I mean, you have to understand is that our frontline workers are low wage workers right now. They're the ones who are at the grocery stores. They're the ones who are in the healthcare industry. They're the ones who are putting their lives at risk every single day. And they don't have the luxury of working from home. There are a lot of folks who have that privilege, who are able to still be able to earn income during this crisis, whereas folks aren't. And I think that discrepancy and that inequity is really showing up in a big way during this crisis.
Another divide, I think, that you talked about in one of your sessions online not too long ago was about education. The city's been giving out a lot of Chromebooks, but what else needs to happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to know, to have the equipment. The other is to know how to use it, right? There is also this assumption that everyone knows how to use Zoom, that everyone is connected to the internet in that way. I mean, people have apps like Facebook, but you know, if you don't work in the professional setting, you're not used to Zoom. And so having parents transition into that space requires an extra level of technical assistance. And then there are a lot of parents who don't speak English. So there's a lot of language barriers that families are facing. And you know what, to be honest, as a parent, I would probably still be in high school if MCAS were around when I was a kid, because I'm still struggling to learn now alongside with my daughter. So I'm Googling everything. So there's a lot of issues around equity and really recognizing that when it comes to education, a lot of our kids are disconnected even further now that we're doing long distance learning. There are a lot of kids who were chronically absent and disengaged to begin with, and now even more so as a COVID-19, they're not logging on and they're not being engaged in academics. So that inequity is going to continue to persist.
Well, we're coming to the summer now, and a lot of students, they need summer jobs, not just for money for their families, but for engagement, for career opportunities. It looks like a lot of that can't happen now. Are you worried about that?
Well, you know, yes, I am. You know, a job literally saved my life when I was a kid. I worked 3 jobs during the summer months, and it was to help put food on the table, but it also taught me a lot about work ethic, right? And it gave me an opportunity to see different types of careers. So I am very worried about the fact that young people that the Summer Youth Employment Program, they're still trying to figure out what it's going to look like given this new way of living. We convened nonprofit organizations and young people and folks from different sectors last Friday to have a community conversation about what are we going to do about youth programming this summer. And one of the things that came up was, how do we create virtual job opportunities for young people? How do we partner with the business community to figure out how we can engage youth in meaningful employment opportunities despite what's happening. So really thinking thoughtful and creatively about how can we continue to engage youth, because, you know, during the summer is when we see an uptick in violence. All of these things are interconnected, right? So really making sure that we have a plan for the summer is important.
Looking ahead to the summer, both in terms of public safety and public health, I imagine we're still going to have some restrictions on public gatherings outside. What's it going to be like in the summer with climate change playing into this too? You know, the temperature goes up. People don't have air conditioners. Sometimes some of them feel they have to stay inside. Some of them are going to go outside. Is that going to be a problem too?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's a problem. There are a lot of young people who don't even feel safe leaving their homes because of the violence, right? And so they're cooped up. And as the weather gets hotter, it's going to be a lot harder for them to stay indoors. And I think that we need to start really thinking through cooling areas and how we're going to be able to, not just with elders, now we're going to have to apply some of those same tactics that we would do for elders. We would have these cooling stations. We're going to have to start thinking about these cooling areas, but also making it safer for people to be able to do so in a manner that, follows the guidelines for social distancing. So it's going to be a challenge.
A more immediate concern that you've been working on is what happens to one of the main food suppliers in Boston, all the neighborhood bodegas. I know people still want food, but a lot of those customers, they're out of work and they might have trouble paying for it.
Yeah, so we launched, so Chris, probably when we first did the first stay-at-home order and schools were closed, I got a call from a parent, and the closest food pantry was probably like a 16 to 20-minute walk. She has a 7-year-old daughter. She also happens to be undocumented. She was afraid about getting on public transportation. And then so I called a few local bodegas to see if they would be able to give her a food credit, a store credit, so she can purchase some food. And that inspired me to launch the Bodega Project initiative, which is an opportunity. We've done some fundraising for it to raise money so that we can support local businesses and so that people can shop at local bodegas right in their neighborhoods and get the items that they need, like rice and beans and oil and things that they know how to cook with. So that's an initiative that we've launched from our office. And we also, as part of our Family Relief Fund, we also have a fund for young people to be able to apply so that they can help get support with their phone bill. So we're really trying to figure out how do we help those who are struggling financially during these times, but how do we do it in a way that also helps support small businesses?
Another thing that you're looking into is helping people with their mental health, and you're doing something up pretty soon with Diana Presley.
Yeah, so tomorrow on every Thursday, we host a mental wellness check-in, specifically for young people, because a lot of young people are feeling disconnected. And so every week they get together with clinicians of color to really talk about some of the issues that they're dealing with at home. And Councilor Presley, as you know, has been a big advocate in the mental wellness space. Is going to be facilitating alongside me tomorrow the conversation. So we're really looking forward to having her join us. And these are weekly conversations that we have. And then the other piece of the work that we're going to be rolling out soon is we're going to be hosting a paint night for young people and elders and caregivers and first responders, where they'll get a care package with art materials. And then we have a local artist who's gonna walk them through a piece, and then we're gonna showcase it. And that is a way for us to help us disconnect from the television and to gather as a family and to do something that's more creative, because, art heals the soul. And so we're trying to figure out different ways to engage folks.
Well, a lot of social life for the younger generation has migrated online already, but being online costs money. What does that mean for a lot of the young people that you're concerned about?
Yeah, well, what we are really grateful about is the fact that Comcast has now is providing free Wi-Fi to Boston Public School students. So they have access to Wi-Fi, so that removes that barrier. But not everyone is hooked up at this point. Not everyone has a computer at home. Those are still some of the inequities that we see. And then, because everyone's on Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi is a little bit slow. The bandwidth is it's taking its toll on the amount of people who are now online. So we get to see a lot of that lag during our Zoom calls here at home. Like, I'm Zooming, my daughter's Zooming while she's in class. I'm Zooming. Everyone is utilizing the internet right now, and that also, impacts the quality of it.
We're going to come back to the youth fund that you're working on. What do you hope to do with that?
Yeah, so what we hope to do is help young people who want to be able to keep their phones on, because if you don't pay your phone bill, it gets shut off. And so we've created this fund so that young people can apply, and what we would do is pay $50 to $100 of their phone bill to help to ensure that they stay connected with their peers. And it's really just, everything is always geared towards adults. We wanted to create a fund that was specifically for young people and college students who are struggling right now as well. We didn't want to leave young people out of the mix, I
want to have you talk a little bit more about what you want to see in the roadmap for recovery in Boston. This is what you and the other councilors were thinking about, is that who's at the table planning this? We have a task force right now the mayor recently put together on disparities, but what else do we need in addition to that?
Yeah, I have always talked about taking a community-centered approach to all things that deal with policy. I would love to really make, creating a space where it's not just the usual suspects that are part of these discussions. So opening up the tent a little bit, making sure that people who are living these realities are informing our thinking, that they're the ones who are leading the process. I'm thinking of low-wage workers. I'm thinking of folks who don't speak English, single moms, young people, your non-traditional folks that you wouldn't think would be part of these think tanks, if you will. But I'd love to be able to think about the recovery efforts in a way that is driven by the people who are living the realities, and that we are responding to that in ways that make sense. So that recovery effort for me is really more for the long term. I don't believe that we should just do this right now because of what's happening with COVID-19. Whatever we do, I would love to be able to build the infrastructure for a long-term strategy for real community engagement.